out to you. Otherwise, you know, you're just going to cry and die. And I was just going to say, who wants to do that?
Yeah, I'm watching all the news.
It is a healthy world. Keep the healthy world. This is why you know that under Lansing, Sean, and Meister,
That's good.
they're all small businesses. It is. It's a true blessing that people stand it up and you know, they know how severe it is. You know, for small businesses, and they're stepping up and they're helping out because you start losing businesses like mine or mechanics. Where do you go? You know what I'm saying? These are services that people need, that we all need to make sure that we take care of. Restaurants, pizza shops, sporting goods stores. I don't care. Those mom and pop jewelers. Yeah, right. That's it. If all of a sudden we let them all, dissipate and go off, we're going to sad day. Then all you do is you try and find something that was made in China. Nothing against China, but but I'm just saying, where are you going to find this stuff? So, I like it. Going home. Yeah, why don't you give me this one?
How are you? Pretty good.
Oh, putting it there. That's it.
Like nothing materialized today.
Good, well, as I step back to the place. God bless. God bless.
Yes, I put a lot of on the highway.
How's it going? Good.
Alright. Places I don't have breakfast. Good evening. You're right,
So they seem legit.
Right now, I got you guys a while
Just check it online.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lansing Village Board meeting for June 2nd, 2020. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask of village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Here.
Trustee Grady-Parovich.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Here.
Trustee Bassi.
Here.
Trustee Mano.
Here.
Trustee Fish.
Here.
The trustees have before them the minutes of the village board meeting of May 19th, 2020. Are there questions or discussion on those minutes? I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Grady-Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Bassi.
Aye.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustees also have before them the minutes from the executive session meeting on May 19th, 2020. Are there questions or discussion on those minutes? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Motion.
Second.
Trustee,
Go ahead.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Grady-Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Bassi.
Aye.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Under the mayor's report, we have, I have the announcement of the resignation of Alex Overman from the Planning and Zoning Board. The trustees have Mr. Overman's letter. It's quite short, so I'll share it with those of you that are here with us tonight. Dear Mayor, item please accept this letter as a notice of my resignation from my role as Planning and Zoning Commissioner for the Village of Lansing. My last day of availability will be May 31st, 2020. I would like to thank you and the Village Board for the opportunity to serve the community that I've spent my whole life a part of. This experience has introduced me to new friends and has given me a new sense of pride for the people and places I grew up with. And that's certainly something I will never forget. I encourage the Village Board to look for another young person to serve on the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals as my replacement. Not only does it add diversity and a different perspective to the board, it gives a member of the community experience that they can use throughout their long career. Lansing will always be my home, and I'm going to miss the town that I grew up in. But I'm encouraged with the path the town is on. Keep the future of the community in mind and strive for the small town feel. Sincerely, Alex Andrew. So we'll begin looking for a replacement for Alex as soon as possible. Going to be a tough young man to replace. Good kid.
Amen.
Move on to the village administrator's report, Mr. Pygorski.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one item tonight, and that's consideration of ordinance number 20-015, which is amending Chapter 2, Article 7 of the Lansing Municipal Code. This ordinance addresses the compensation levels for the village clerk's position. So as discussed previously at a committee of the whole meeting. Just recapping briefly what's proposed in the ordinance. Currently, our village clerk's position is paid at a flat rate of $45,000, and the ordinance proposes two possible levels of compensation for our clerk. And keep in mind that these changes would not take effect until, if the ordinance is adopted, would not take effect until after the next municipal election. If the clerk served as a full-time clerk, the pay would be increased to $60,000, which we feel is more in line with many other municipalities. And the position would continue to include health and medical and dental benefits and other benefits as afforded to the position. If the clerk chose to serve in a part-time role, then the pay would be decreased to $30,000 per year, and no benefits would be available. So the ordinance contemplates the village treasurer or administrator certifying every year to the mayor and the village board the amount of hours that the clerk is working, so that a determination can be made whether or not to treat the pay as full or part-time. And that's really about it. I don't know if the trustees, the board members have any questions. Can endeavor to answer those questions if they have any.
At the last committee of the whole meeting, there was also a proposal for mayor and trustee. Are those off the table? Are they going to come up again? What's the thought? Does anybody have a thought?
I'm just presenting what I believe we have a majority opinion on based on conversations I've had. So that's why this ordinance only contemplates the clerk's position.
Thank you.
Okay, so if the trustees are in agreement, if they so choose, it would be appropriate at this time to have a motion.
Make a motion that we adopt ordinance 20-015, amending chapter 2, article 7 of the Lansing Municipal Code.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 20-015, amending chapter 2, article 7 of the Lansing Municipal Code. Is there any further discussion or questions? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Zeldin-Rose?
Aye.
Trustee Mano?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich?
Aye.
That's all I have in this meeting, Mayor.
We'll move on to the village attorney's report. Mr. Welch.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Finance and Human Relations Commission, Trustee Bassi.
Thank you, Mayor. One item tonight, I'd like to make a motion that we would approve payroll for the dates May 16 and PD back pay for the periods 4/19/19 through 5/2/20 in the amount of $641,014.91. That we would approve total accounts payable for the dates May 18, May 26, May 31, and June 2nd, 2020, in the amount of $522,284.57.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve bills and payroll for Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rose?
Aye.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich?
Aye.
Trustee Mano?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing further tonight.
Airport and Economic Development, Trustee Fish.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items on the agenda tonight. First one is I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 20-016, amending Article 2 of Chapter 8 of the Lansing Municipal Code, issuing a Class 9 liquor license to the 4 on Roy, 18155 Roy Street, Unit 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 20-016, amending Article 2 of Chapter 8 of the Lansing Municipal Code, issuing a Class 9 liquor license to the 4 on Roy at 18155 Roy Street, Unit 2. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Mano?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rose?
Aye.
Second, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 20-017, authorizing and approving a tax increment financing redevelopment agreement between the Village of Lansing and OTP RE LLC, One Trick Pony at 3329 Ridge Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 20-017, authorizing and approving a tax increment financing redevelopment agreement between the Village of Lansing and OTP RE LLC, One Trick Pony, for 3329 Ridge Road. Are there questions or discussion?
I wasn't here last meeting. I just wanted to take a moment publicly to just say good luck to you, Mark, and to the establishment. We look forward to what it's going to bring to downtown. Just wanted to publicly say that.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Really, truly.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Well, Mark, it's finally here. Finally here. Okay, Third, I'd like to make a motion to award Fox Point Concession Building interior renovation carpentry bid to Cape Safe Construction, INC, in the amount of $27,233.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the Fox Point Concession Building Interior Renovation Carpentry bid to Keepsake Construction Incorporated in the amount of $27,233. Are there questions or discussion? Ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to award Fox Point Concession Building interior renovation masonry bid to Iwinski Masonry and Builders Incorporated in the amount of $28,475.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the Fox Point Concession Building Interior Renovation Masonry bid to Iwanski Masonry and Building Incorporated in the amount of $28,475. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to award Fox Point Concession Building interior renovation plumbing bid to Reichel Plumbing Incorporated in the amount of $10,500.
Second.
The motion and a second to award the Fox Point Concession Building Interior Renovation Plumbing bid to Reichert Plumbing Incorporated in the amount of $10,500. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to award Fox Point Concession Building interior renovation electric bid to Cracus Electric Incorporated in the amount of $5,825.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the Fox Point Concession Building Interior Renovation Electric bid to Cricus Electric Incorporated in the amount of $5,825. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have tonight.
Police and Fire, Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no items to present this evening, but I would like to take this opportunity to just give public words of thanks to our police department, fire department, and public works for the way things were handled in our village over the weekend. It's no secret to our audience, to our residents, anybody who's been on the planet, that there have been repercussions from the death of George Floyd, from his death on May 25th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was a tragedy. I'm glad we live in a village where this is a place where our citizens can make their voices heard in peaceful protest. And I think I speak for the village board in that we also condemn those who would capitalize on this tragedy by rioting and looting in our village, causing damage to our businesses and further financial injury to our business owners. It's a shame, but I'm thankful to our police who literally answered the call for almost all, if not all of our officers who came out Sunday night and formed that thin blue line between order and chaos. Assisted by Public Works and others in the village, I'm just proud of them for keeping the peace. I know our FD was on call as well. I encourage our residents to share words and acts of encouragement to our officers and keep them in our prayers for safety in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Amen.
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, trustee Zeldin, well said. Buildings and Public Works, trustee Hardy.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items here tonight. I'd like to make a motion to award the 2020 Pavement Management Program street resurfacing bid to Iroquois Paving Corp. in the amount of $659,178.70.
Second.
A motion and a second to award the 2020 Pavement Management Program street resurfacing bid to Iroquois Paving Corporation in the amount of $659,178.70. Are there questions or discussion?
Mayor, I'd just like to thank Robinson Engineering for working on this bid here and, working hard. The estimate roughly was $751,000. So there's a savings, if you want to call it that, a difference of almost $91,000 in this program here from the estimate. So thanks for the hard work, Robinson Engineering, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Trustee Hardy, you have one more.
Two more. Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a couple more. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, wait. I'm sorry, trustee Hardy. I'm sorry.
Do we have a vote?
We have a motion and a second. We have a statement. Is there any further discussion or questions? I apologize.
Trustee,
Go ahead.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Vano?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Palovich?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin.
Aye.
Moving on, I'd like to make a motion, authorize advertising for bid for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Grant for the sum of $350,000 for replacement of an emergency generator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize advertising for bids for Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Grant of $350,000 for replacement of an emergency generator. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Vano?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Palovich?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin.
Aye.
Last but certainly not least, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize a grant application through the Rebuild Illinois Fast Track Public Infrastructure Grant Program for 192nd Place and 193rd Street road reconstruction and water main replacement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize grant application through Rebuild Illinois Fast Track Public Infrastructure Grant Program for 192nd Place and 193rd Street road reconstruction and water main replacement. Are there questions or discussion? I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Vano?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin.
Aye.
Trustee Grady Palovich?
Aye.
Mayor, that's all I have on the report. I would also like to extend my gratitude and thanks to the Lansing Police Department, Fire Department, and Public Works, truly for their hard work through some difficult times that that our country's been faced with. A lot of the Lansing residents, my neighbors, all approached me, and they were quite impressed with how the village worked together to solve problems. And all I can say is that we as a people, we all need to get together and work our differences out. And I truly hope that this can happen because some changes do need to be made. So that's what I would like to say. And as a public leader in town here, I'm willing to listen and work with the residents and make this thing happen. So thank you, and God bless Lansing. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Information Technology, L&N and ADA, trustee Mano.
Mayor, I have nothing at this time, but I also like to get over what trustee Delma Rust and trustee Hardy just said about that. I don't need to go over it again, but all you guys back there, public works, fire, police, thank you so much for being so professional out there. I know it's tough. Keep up the good work, Lansing strong, thank you. That's all here.
Youth Center and Insurance, Trustee Grady Parovich.
I have nothing formally on this agenda for this meeting, but again, my thanks to all the village employees who stepped up to do the job that needed to be done. And we'll keep you in our thoughts and our prayers every day. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for public comment. If anyone here in the audience has public comment, you're invited to step forward. Do we have a microphone?
Yes, I'll grab it.
You're invited to step forward to the microphone with your public comment. We ask that you please give your name. Does anyone in the audience have public comment? Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Do we have any public comment from those watching?
We do, Mayor. This is from Alicia Hushaw, that's Hushaw, resides at 2279 184th Place. She says, I moved here in December of 2018. When it rains, the streets are flooding and the water is flooding some of the neighbors' basements. I'm not sure if you are aware or not, but Cook County can assist the Village of Lansing to rectify this problem. You can apply for a CDBG or a Community Development Block Grant. That's the public comment.
Thank you very much. The trustees have anything for old business?
I have a question. Are our LPRs installed and doing their thing?
Yes, Ridge and Wentworth is. It is up and working, and recorded license plates is at the intersection. The other two at the I-80 corridor there, we're waiting on IDOT for engineering to allow the permits to go through. With the COVID virus, things haven't moved as quickly as we'd like. People haven't been in the office, but just had an email yesterday that they're going to be contacting the permit engineer Friday to get that hopefully established and get that moving forward.
Thank you. Trustees have anything else for old business? Anything for new business?
Mayor, the only thing I'd like to say is that I didn't get the opportunity to Zoran or Gary Richardson, if you guys had anything that you guys wanted to add, you know, to anything here tonight.
Nothing at this moment. Thank you, Trustee Wright.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Manno?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Grady Parovich? Trustee Zeldin-Rose?
Aye.
No, they're not.
Thank you.
You won't be impressed.
Did I go to your village?
Huh?
Did I go to your village?
No. But
I already know what she tell you when she's coming back? Oh, she's not. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the committee of the whole meeting to order for June 2nd, 2020. I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Here.
Trustee Grady Parovich. Trustee Hardy.
Here.
Trustee Abasi.
Here.
Trustee Mano.
Here.
Trustee Fish.
Here.
Trustees have before them the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of May 19th, 2020. Are there questions or discussion on those minutes? I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Motion second.
I'll ask the village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Mano.
Aye.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Rust.
Aye.
Trustee Abasi.
Aye.
Trustee Fish.
Aye.
I have nothing under the mayor's report. We'll move on to the village administrator's report. Mr. Podgorski.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple items here tonight. I just want to check with our IT director. Do we have Mayor DeGraff? Is he ready with us? Okay, very good.
Should be.
Okay, so I'm going to just set this up a little bit. This is going to be a discussion, going to be some depth to this. You know, trustees and elected officials, we go through our cycles during the course of the year. We go through our budget cycle, we go through appropriations, we go through our abatement ordinances and our applications for an award for street resurfacing, and sometimes our CDBG grant applications as our public comment person suggested tonight. You don't always come across opportunities and kind of transformational projects like we're gonna hear about tonight. Mayor DeGraff from South Holland and Aaron Fundage from Robinson are gonna give us a presentation about, as it's entitled, The Future of Water Supply in the South Suburbs. Lansing's enjoyed a long-time relationship with the city of Hammond, and that's where we get our water from via Lake Michigan. Obviously, the cost of water being supplied from the city of Chicago and Hammond has gone up for many municipalities over the last several years. So what's been formed most recently has been what you'll hear from tonight, the Southland Water Agency. And it was formed to provide an independent system, competitive system to operate, again, independently and to provide cost certainty compared to the two main sources of water supply from Lake Michigan. So what the trustees are going to hear tonight is what I would consider a major opportunity for Lansing to lock into what I think will be huge savings for us down the road and for many years thereafter. South Holland is one of the founding members of the Southland Water Agency, and we're blessed to have with us tonight remotely Mayor Don DeGraff from South Holland, longtime mayor of South Holland, and he's going to set up the presentation for us tonight, and then Aaron will get into some of the details. So Mayor DeGraff, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, good evening, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time here. Really coming tonight as chairman of the SWA and Southland Water Agency, as opposed to neighboring mayor from South Holland. That said, I want to take this opportunity initially just to thank Lansing for years of working together, for the wonderful cooperation that we've had over the years. There's a lot of similarities between South Holland and Lansing, and your leadership has really done a great job working as leaders in Chicago South End region, and I recognize that, our board recognizes that, and the mutual aid and the cooperation is second to none. So thank you for that. I want to initially start with that. There were some sentiments shared by your board. I had the opportunity to listen to your board meeting, and that's the first time in my 27-year career as mayor I actually heard the Lansing board meeting. Mayor Patty, you run a great meeting, very effective, very efficient, very quick, admirable, and something that we always try to do in South Holland as well, keep things to the point, short and effective. But it's important for me to share how thankful I am for a neighbor like Lansing. It's something that means a lot to us to know that we have that kind of friendship on our board. And that's really the reason why I'm here tonight too, as chairman of SWA, it's really important to understand, and Dan alluded to this, of the opportunities that we share in the Chicago South End region. In my history of being involved in village government, there's never been a time that I'm more excited about the future of the Chicago South End region, the South Suburbs. And a lot of it has to do with what we're going to talk about tonight. The dollars will speak for themselves. We all know how dependent we've been on Chicago for years. Of course, you're with your agreement with Hammond. We also work with you, have an agreement through Hammond as well. But we know that what has happened to Chicago water rates, we know what's going to be happening with Hammond rates, given 88% of Chicago's fee going forward. And so we have for now a year, it's really about 4.5 years, been talking about an opportunity to find a way, the Chicago South End region, the South Suburbs in particular, from our area, from South Holland, Cal City, Harvey, Lansing, Glenwood, moving over to Homewood and Frankfurt, and even going west now toward Joliet, to find a way in which we can come up and save literally millions and millions of dollars by finding a different source, so that we don't continually feel like we're getting taken advantage of in the city of Chicago. So the last year, actually it goes back, I think, to May of last year, we actually organized ourselves legally, even though we talked for about 4 years now. And so, as Dan mentioned, it's ourselves in South Holland, along with Taylor Crest, Tom Brown, and Bobby Kolash and Thornton. We actually comprise the board to date, the initial board, and our executive committee is made up of our 3 village administrators. Robinson Engineering, of course, the engineer of record, and Ice Miller is our attorneys of record. What's happening here is there's a tremendous amount of momentum that's being gained, to the point now that we have, and I think Aaron's going to talk about this, but we have some agreements in place for the access site. We have agreements in place for the financing, and as well as preliminary agreement as to where the actual pipes of the intakes will go from the lake to the state line. And a lot of this is being discussed, but there's a very good plan that's being worked out. I'm going to let Aaron give you the specifics of this, but I want you to know that the opportunities that exist for our mutual suburbs, in my opinion, is second to none. There's initial work that needs to be done. We're looking now to accumulate a number of other south suburbs to join us in this venture. We feel that there could be as many as 6 or 7 joining us on or prior to July 1, which is kind of a critical date for us in terms of how the agreement reads. We have an agreement with the group, now a very strong, financially strong committee group to work with us on the intake coming in from the lake. So with that, without getting too much detail, I'm going to let Aaron give the details. I'll stay on the phone and be able to either participate in the discussion or answer questions as the case may be. But Aaron, take it over. Let's see if we can answer some questions.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Iden, members of the village board. As Mayor DeGraff said, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to present this. And you can see on the title, this was originally presented to a group of 16 communities in the south suburbs back in February. It was only mayors and managers at the initial rollout of this, but I've tried to I abridged it and customized it for Lansing a little further this evening. As we talked, and we recognizing that certainly Lansing has got a long-term relationship with Hammond. Hammond's water rates are less than Chicago's, and Lansing is really in the catbird seat right now, because I think Lansing has the lowest wholesale rate out of any Illinois suburban community. And this really is going to put you in the strongest position going forward, and we fully recognize that. For a 35-year period, Chicago's rates increased average 6% per year from 1980 to 2015. As recently as 2006, it was only $1.33. Hammond's was only $1.16 at that time per 1,000 gallons. Chicago's rates, in fact, they just increased again yesterday. As of June 1st, they are now $4.08. So they've more than tripled in the last 14 years. Hammond has very publicly pegged its rate arbitrarily to 88% of Chicago's rate. Now Lansing, by virtue of your existing contract which I believe has been in place since 2006, has got a lower rate structure than that. However, Hammond's practice has been over the past several years with both Chicago Heights and with Calumet City to increase the rate dramatically all at once to match 88% of Chicago. Your current contract expires in 2026. And as Mayor DeGraff indicated, we're looking to build a completely independent system. It would be a brand new system from Lake Michigan all the way to the Illinois state line. Somewhere on the Illinois side, we would build a water treatment facility and then distribute all the finished water to Illinois communities. Everything would be completely independent of Chicago, completely independent of Hammond. And the most important thing is the transparency and the predictability of water rates for the next 50 years. Don has already gone through all these details, so I'm going to just fly through this. We have an agreement for a Lake Michigan access site. We have developed a public-private partnership with a group in Northwest Indiana that has property right on Lake Michigan. We've got a signed pre-development agreement for them to front the cost to build the line and the pumping station and the intake, basically a $300 million investment to get the water to Illinois. We're currently investigating feasible and available sites for our water treatment facility. We do have one or two that are rising to the top of that analysis right now. And as Don mentioned, we're looking at 7 to 10 other community commitments during the month of June. There are several that are already scheduled in similar meetings just as we're in right now. The end game is that we have developed a water supply contract, and we are putting it in writing at this time that any early adopter would have initial water rates guaranteed to be 3%, at least 3%, lower than what their current supplier will charge at the time that our system becomes operational, which we're estimating to be about 8 years from now, 2028. At that point, a fixed rate would be guaranteed for the first 10 years thereafter. And then, for the entire length of the 50-year water contract, they would never rise more than 2% in any given year from year 11 through year 50. There's deep discounts available for early adopters. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But one of the reasons that I believe that the charter members, including Mayor DeGraff, are so excited about this are the potential economic development advantages, the ability to finally get a win for the Chicago Southland. You know, our geography is a huge advantage. Communities in DuPage County don't have the opportunity to go all the way to the lake very easily. Even all the way up in the northwest suburbs of Schaumburg, they're beholden to however high Chicago is going to continue to increase the rates going forward. We have a golden opportunity here in the south suburbs. And what communities will be able to do at the local level is be able to, it will be up to each individual community. The wholesale water rate will be significantly lower over time than what other communities face. Communities will have the option with their own individual rates whether to pass all of that savings on to their constituents or maybe pass along part of it so that they're still lower than most of the areas around it, but use that gap of lower cost with additional revenue to be able to help fund their own individual water system infrastructure for the next century. In terms of a lot of the water systems are approaching 60, 80, 100 years old, these systems are going to need to be replaced. This is going to be a viable funding source to do that. This graph shows, you can see here, 398 is where Chicago's rate was. Let's see what happened there. Sorry about that. Fat finger. How do I get, data image?
There you go.
I can't read it.
Thank you. But 398 is where we are in 2020. These graphs, the black area there shows that Chicago's rate was to go up just by 2% over the next 50 years, what those rates would turn out to be. And you can see that by 2027, that'll be at 466. And like I said, it's at 408 starting yesterday. And what those numbers become. You can see that the turquoise numbers would be Chicago at 3% going forward over the next several decades. We know from history that it's averaged 6%, so we believe this is an extremely conservative model. Just from a baseline project, as we look at this from a regional standpoint, we're looking at a project that we were able to achieve enough communities to get a threshold of 20 million gallons per day in the south suburbs. We believe that's going to be enough to allow us the opportunity to partner with Joliet, which is also looking at building a brand new system for Lake Michigan water, which will then save even further numbers. So we're looking at a baseline project based on $600 million. If that was to occur in over a 40-year financing period, the numbers in red, you can see how much lower these numbers will be over time, particularly when the 40-year financing is paid off. Our rates would be less than a third of where Chicago would be in the most generous analysis. Now, Hammond is lower than that, but if Hammond continues at 88%, it would still be up here in the 950 range. So it's a very powerful mathematical model over time that you can see it, and we know that in order to really make it work, we need enough communities to be together so that from day one, we can be at or below where Chicago will be at that point. And so that's really the premise of our entire analysis. There are numerous communities that aren't situated quite as close to the lake or quite as close to the direct supply. Communities like Country Club Hills or Madison, who buy their water from Oak Lawn, who buys it from Chicago. So by the time it gets all the way down to them, they're paying nearly $6 per thousand today. And so overall, in the Chicago suburbs, that average wholesale rate today is $5.46. We know, on average, we're going to be significantly lower than that, okay? This is the target markets that we're looking at. We've got some color coding here just because over time, communities have been grouped in different ways. Part of that is dealing with who their current water suppliers are and how it's set up. But there's a target market here of at least 50 or 60 million gallons a day just here in the South Bend. The newest thing that's happened over these last 2 or 3 years, and I'm not sure how many followed what's going on in Joliet, but they are still on well water out there, along with many of the communities that surround Joliet. The aquifer is drying up, and the Illinois State Water Survey has determined that by the year 2030, only 10 years from now, they will not have enough water to meet their peak demand from that aquifer. They and many of the other communities that are around there that are high-growth communities. So Joliet embarked on a $1 million engineering study over the last couple of years. Just at the first of this year, their city council made the decision they're going to go to Lake Michigan water after they looked at the Kankakee River and other places. Joliet alone projects to 24 million gallons a day during the design time that they're looking at. So by partnering with them, the infrastructure that it would take to get to at least part of the way there could be shared by that many more municipalities, creating an amazing economy of scale for both the south suburbs and Joliet with whoever else they may partner with out here. As I mentioned, we've got an executed pre-development contract with a group in Indiana. In fact, we've got our status meeting with them tomorrow morning. We'll be meeting with them for a couple hours. We have the agency has executed a contract with Robinson to move forward with a facilities planning report, which is going to be used for a funding application later this summer. We're also partnered with a couple other engineering firms that are much larger than Robinson as part of this effort. And we also have a water supply contract that I believe that we handed out last week in the board packets that communities are considering at this time. Ultimately, the route would start near Buffington Harbor, which is where the Majestic Star Casino currently is in Gary. That casino site is going to be no longer at that location. They're building the land-based site off the Borman Expressway. So by this time next year, the riverboat that's there won't be there. We've got a deal that allows us a 3-acre parcel in which to build a pump station. We've got a 99-year lease for that deal, with all of the terms essentially worked out already. There would be an intake into the lake that would be about 2 miles into the lake, draw the water to this big pump station, and then it would go along this route. We've got the route, basically have City of Gary approvals on the preliminary route. So we gotta keep hitting the wrong button, I'm sorry. There we go. And ultimately get it to the state line, which may very well end up right here in Lansing, depending on how the final engineering works out. So from a schedule standpoint, this year we're basically working on getting all of the contractual agreements in place with Southern Cook County customers. We're negotiating with Joliet. In fact, we've got a meeting with them coming up again in about 2 weeks. We're going to be finalizing project scope and facilities planning report, funding applications, and ultimately identifying all property acquisitions that are going to be needed. Design engineering, permitting, and land acquisition is planned for 21 through 23, as well as hiring an executive director for the agency. Construction and testing are envisioned between 24 and 26. Water service would begin between 27 and 28. That's the tentative plan. And then the next 70 years, the plan is to literally save hundreds of millions of dollars collectively for the Chicago Southland. I mentioned earlier, Indiana Infrastructure is committed to finance the construction to the state line. At that point, we'll have a contract where the agency will then purchase the infrastructure from that group. When this is all said and done, the Southland Water Agency will own all of the infrastructure assets, which gives us complete independence, again, from Hammond or from Chicago or whoever else. We're going to be pursuing low interest WIFIA loan from the US EPA. This is a relatively new program, but it's geared toward large scale regional projects like this. We know that, in fact, Joliet applied a year ago and they were approved back in November to take the next step with their program. So we know that the project itself has enough merit where we believe our agency will be successful as well. We're also going to pursue low-interest IEPA loans, which many of you are familiar with already. And there may also be other agency revenue bonds, private investors, as the whole project scope gets finalized. The exact water rates for communities aren't known today, other than we know we can make the guarantees in the contract as it relates to the current water rate systems. When the project is finally scoped and we have bids, we'll be able to calculate the exact rates. But we will guarantee, like I said, from day one, the rates will be lower than your current supplier, and along with the 10-year rate guarantee. Lansing, I mentioned this earlier, you actually have the strongest position of all the south suburbs because you currently pay the lowest rate. You will have, if you were to be, at least engaged with the agency at that time, leverage if and when Hammond is going to look to charge 88% of Chicago 6 years from now when your contract is up. Maybe Hammond will make you an offer you can't refuse. We don't know yet, but we do believe that the agency provides an incredibly strong insurance policy for when that time comes. But the long-term benefit is still the real key to this agency, the guarantee of long-term rates. And the reason it works is for the first 40 years, 3/4 of the agency rate will be debt service. It's going to be fixed, or basically fixed. The O&M costs that are subject to CPI on an annual basis are really only going to be about 20 to 25% of our rate. So instead of every year going up 2% on $4, we're going to go 2% on $1. And over time, that's why that graph looks the way it does. That net savings in between, when you pump millions of gallons of water each day, makes a gigantic difference in dollars and cents. This is a little bit, probably too much detail, but we informed everyone that the years 11 through 50 will be based on a formula that will be determined probably by this time next year. As far as entering the agency, there's two requirements that communities have to be able to join the agency. One is an executed water supply contract. The agency, in order to finance the project, requires the take-or-pay water supply contracts from enough customers so that the funding agencies will know that we'll have sufficient revenues to pay down the debt. We're also having, and this fee structure was approved by the agency board back in December, a base fee of $150,000 per MGD, per million gallon a day of a community's water allocation. That number is going to go up after this year due to a variety of reasons because of moving forward and the additional risk that the agency would take to oversize facilities for communities that aren't yet committed. But we are offering incredible early adopter savings. Before July 1st of this year, that fee is only $50,000 per MGD. After July 1st, or after we get up to that threshold of 20 million gallons, it'll go up to 100,000. That can be paid over a 3-year period with 50% in year 1 and 25% in each of the following 2 years. And this is really to offset a lot of the soft costs that the agency has to undergo over these next 4 years to bring the project to fruition. Why the incentives before July 1st? Now, we realize that we're only a month away, because the first time many of you are hearing of this, we've been obviously slowed down a little bit with COVID and so forth, but certainly it's been out there since February. WIFIA, which is a federal funding program, annually has typically had your initial application documents due right after 4th of July. This particular, when this was put together, that was still the intent. It's a little bit delayed. They're going to be due by September 1st or so because of COVID. But the 20 million gallons a day is very important in order for the south suburbs to have a strong negotiating position with Joliet, which we believe is going to bring our rates down by even another 50 to 75 cents per 1,000 gallons. The sooner we reach the 20 million gallons a day, the sooner we become real as a potential partner in the eyes of Joliet. Joliet is going to make their decision on exactly what they're going to do. Are they going to go it alone to build their own system? Are they going to potentially partner with the South Suburban Group? Or are they going to simply just buy water from Chicago? They're analyzing all 3 of those final options as we speak, but they are going to make a final decision by December of this year, is when their city council will make that decision. So we want to be in position by the end of, or by next month really, to be able to sit down as an equal partner from a water use standpoint with Joliet. In addition to the discounted application fees, early adopters will get better long-term rates as well. So for Lansing, in Lansing's case, because you also serve Linwood with water, your allocation in 2025 is about 3.6 million gallons a day. At 50,000 per MGD, that comes to 181,650, and it would be 50% due July 1st, 45,000 and change each of the next 2 years. And that's obviously not an insignificant sum, but when we look at what that turns into, if you ultimately end up with rates 5% below what Hammond will be at in 2028, which we're projecting to be $3.99 at 80% of Chicago, 88% of Chicago's rate. The amount of savings in year 1 for Lansing, based on using this water usage, would be $278,000. Year 2, that goes up, because while Hammond would be projected to go up 2%, our rate would stay fixed for the first 10 years. So these rate differentials keep going up each and every year, to the point where in the first 3 years, the village savings would be $1.16 million. The numbers would be astronomically higher than that over the subsequent 47 years. On that $181,000 investment, 10 years from now, which is projected to be the first 3 years of actual usage, a 639% rate of return. Again, gives powerful leverage for Lansing when the time comes to negotiate with Hammond. So this is just a quick summary for all the early adopters. I've kind of gone through all this already, it just puts it all in one nice chart. But the earliest adopters are going to get that initial rate guarantee 5% below instead of 3%. They still have the 10-year freeze on the rate. and then a formula discount of 10% for the following 40 years, still with never increasing more than 2% in a single year. So that's the summary. Mission statement is there on the board, and with that, we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Is our current contract with Hammond fixed rate through 2026, or does that increase annually by a set percentage?
Arlo, you got the contract with you? I believe it's a fixed rate, but they have the ability to increase as they go along.
Through the terms of the contract, they can increase up until. So really, this is there's a lot of hypotheticals that go into kind of the calculations of these numbers, and so, you know, the potential savings are great, but there's also a hypothetical situation where in 2026, Lansing is able to renegotiate with Hammond for another 10 to 20 year term for significantly lower rates than other suburban communities and save the infrastructure cost of the initial upfront cost. Am I interpreting that right, or am I missing something?
No, I think that's in a broad sense that's true, and Aaron alluded to that earlier, that, you know, Lansing sort of sits in a catbird seat where, you know, you know, we do have a strong position as probably the lowest charged municipality, you know, probably in the entire region. However, the Southwind Water Agency models still contemplate us beginning at an amount less than what we're paying to Hammond right now. So, and as Aaron alluded earlier, Hammond might, you know, a lot of the models that are being projected, and we've seen, the mayor and I were at the luncheon, I think Aaron, I think it was January or February.
February 4th.
February 4th. And, yeah, and the numbers are tremendous. And you start to, if you contemplate that Chicago would go up by those same percentages year after year after year, and if you assume that Hammond ties their rate to 88% of Chicago's, then these numbers are even greater. If that doesn't happen, if the competition from the SWA forces Chicago and Hammond to the table and forces them to come down with their rates, you know, we still have that decision to make in 2026, where, you know, they're not going to want to lose the 3.6 million gallons per day that they sell to us. So, you know, for a small fee, we're really buying ourselves an insurance policy to ensure that Lansing continues for decades as probably one of the best, if not the best, rate, you know, in terms of what our water rates would be, whether we stayed with Hammond or whether we switched over to the Southland Water Agency. So, you know, again, the numbers are very powerful, and we specifically asked Aaron tonight to kind of tamp down, you know, the numbers, and I really can't believe you got through that as quick as you did.
Took much longer than one.
It really did.
But yeah, I mean, the numbers can be, you know, they're very mind-boggling. If you can get lost in them pretty quick. I think the key though is to focus on, you know, our initial position would be 3%, or actually, if we get on board by July 1st, our initial position would be 5% less than with our current provider. So we're really guaranteed to be in, you know, one of the strongest positions possible. And if it's, you know, if we determine that, you know, 6 years down the road that Hammond comes along and decides they want to be neck and neck with the SWA, and like Aaron said, if they make us an offer we can't refuse, then we've essentially, you know, picked up ourselves a really good insurance policy for the next 6 years.
I'm not entirely familiar with the water agreements with Glenwood. Would that $181,000 application fee be shared with the village of Glenwood, or is that solely carried by Lansing?
No, that application fee would be carried by Lansing because we're the ones that Hammond is supplying it to us, and then we're in turn supplying some of that to Linwood. So we would carry that application fee, the $90,000 that we would owe by July 1st of this year. We've already not taking anything for granted, but we've already worked that into the budget in the water sewer account. We think the opportunity here is too great to pass up. It's too great of an insurance policy to pass on. So it's included in our budget. It's obviously not adopted yet because we haven't gotten to that point, but the money, the money is there for us to get in on this at the ground level.
Is there any way that Hammond would, I don't know, I know they pay a little percent more than what we pay for the water. We pass a little bit on to them.
We do pass costs on to Linwood. So Linwood is not getting water from us for what we get at Bergen.
So we would anticipate as our rate stay fixed, so it's theirs for 10 years, correct?
I'm sorry.
Or that if ours stayed fixed, our rate stayed fixed for the first 10 years, theirs would be also, or do we negotiate them?
We negotiate that rate to Linwood. We pass
Every year?
on whatever our water rate is, we pass on to, our billable water rate is what we pass on to Linwood.
And every year we change that contract?
I'll have to, I don't want to speak that for sure, because I'll have to look at that.
Aaron, talk a little bit about the million gallons per day and the reason that let's go back to why it's important to get commitments by July 1st. Talk a little bit about, again, the economies of scale by accumulating enough commitments from Southland agencies. Now you can partner with, you'll be able to present a stronger position to Joliet as they make their decision. And if they're already at 19 million gallons per day, and you get a conglomeration of South Suburban agencies that are 20 million gallons per day or more, now you're at close to 40 million gallons per day, and now your economies of scale just start working even greater.
That's very true, and it's the more water use with or without Joliet, the more water use that's aggregated, so many of those fixed costs are able to get shared amongst a greater number of accounts, that it brings everybody's rate down significantly. Now, Joliet may or may not decide to partner with us. If they do, we feel that it's a huge benefit to us. We feel it's a huge benefit to Joliet, without a doubt. But that remains to be seen. Here in this, but this is one of the reasons, along with the federal funding application, why it's important to the agency to know who's committed by July 1st or who isn't, because those two processes, the funding application and the negotiations with Joliet, are going to start taking place this summer irrespective. So we're hoping to have the strongest case in both of those avenues.
Aaron, are there any research studies done on national trends on water? I mean, is this what you're seeing in Hammond and Chicago? Is this nationwide, just in terms of percentage increases in water?
I think costs are going up quite a bit in a lot of places. Part of that, it really even since 2008, when we had the economic downturn, a lot of water usage it dropped considerably, industry and things like that. The other part of that is water conservation with more water efficient appliances and so forth. So what's happened is that the cost to produce the water for Chicago or Hammond or whoever else, it's still there. But if they've got less water usage to divide those costs among, the rate has gone up considerably. But we know, and Chicago has been very public about this, they have, that tripling of their water rate over a 10-year period, it's funneling in literally $240 million a year extra that they are primarily using to replace all their water mains block by block in the city. I live in Chicago, I know. And so really the suburbs, the extra money that they're charging their own residents the same rate, But all that extra money that's coming in from the suburbs is being used to replace Chicago's infrastructure in large part.
Aaron, can you go maybe back up on a slide or two, or go to the slide that talks about the application fees and how much of a discount? I think it's worth going through that.
This one here?
Yeah, that's good. Just talk about what, so these application fees, again, these are meant to help fund the agency in these lead-up years. Some of these costs of, of planning and hiring a director and doing some of the work.
Like land acquisition is another one. There's legal fees, there's accounting fees, they got to do an audit just like any governmental agency does, things like that.
Yeah, so just maybe talk a little bit about, going back to that slide to show how much more, how much of a discount you're proposing right now.
Sure. When the agency board first considered a fee structure, really the number they were looking at is here at this $150,000 per MGD, because we really believe that's about what our costs are going to be, over these next 3 or 4 years. It all depends on who all joins. But the baseline contract, so to speak, would be $150,000 per MGD with a guarantee of 3% lower rate the first year, the 10-year rate guarantee freeze, and then a formula discount of 2.5% off whatever the formula would spit out for the last 40 years of the contract. But again, because of these important reasons that we need to really have a critical mass by this summer, we decided, or the board decided, to offer significant reductions in the application fee for those that join by July 1st, as well as even a greater rate guarantee and a greater long-term formula discount. So before July 1st, for the first 20 million gallons a day that join the agency, this will be their package. If a community joins after July 1st, but before December 31st, the 50,000 becomes 100,000, the future rate guarantees drop to 3% instead of 5%, and the formula discounts drop accordingly too. July 1st is an important date to the agency. We're being very transparent about that for these multiple reasons. And that's where, again, we know that right now there are at least 7 other communities with this kind of a meeting scheduled here in the next couple of weeks that their village board will be considering the same thing.
So you can see, that if you waited until after January 1st of 2023, you'd be looking at a buy-in rate of 10 times more than.
That's correct. And the reason for that is if the agency is going to, ultimately we're going to have enough critical mass to build the system, it will be up to the board when that time comes to determine if they want to oversize the facilities, say build a 72-inch pipe instead of a 60-inch pipe. There's going to be a higher cost to do that. And so rather than the agency taking all of that risk, they're going to need to collect some of that back from communities that might not join 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever the case may be. It's really a risk-reward scenario for early adopters to be able to get the greatest long-term rates for the next 50 years.
Eric, talk a little bit about this scenario contemplates a starting rate at 3 to 5% less than what our current provider is, a 10-year rate freeze for the first 10 years, and then in years, so then at year 11, there's going to be a resetting of the rates, correct?
Correct.
And that would be the opportunity for the agency to reset based on costs that are known, based on what's happened up to that date, and at that point, the annual cap increase after that year 11 is 2%.
Maximum 2%.
But that entering year 11 is where there would be a rate adjustment. That could be, it could be more than 2%. It could be whatever it's going to be. That's the one thing that's.
It could be, and the reason for that is that one of the things that certainly for that first year, those first 10 years, because there's a wide variability of what communities currently pay. Lansing, I believe you're paying less than $3 right now, $2.40, somewhere in that range, which again, you've got by far the best rates of anybody. Now, what will Hammond be charging in 2028? That's really what remains to be seen. So, but even like Calumet City, for example, they're on the 88% with Chicago. That's projected to be $4.20 in 2028, okay? To be 3% or 5% less than that is what the agency would commit to do. But for a community like Country Club Hills, for example, who's currently paying Old Lawn about $5.40, projected to be $6 by 2028, 5% lower than them would still be significantly higher than the initial rate that Calumet City, Lansing, et cetera, might pay. So what the goal would be is after that first 10-year period to normalize the rates to make them a little bit more even throughout the entire region. That's really part of the goal of the long term. Now that doesn't still mean that everyone would have the same rate. It's just a function of trying to get everybody a little bit closer to the mean because none of the communities are able to achieve the magnitude of savings that they're going to achieve without the partnership of all the other suburban communities. So that it's kind of a where we go, when we go all type of an approach. But in order to make it work, there needs to be that variability in the first 10 years. One more thing, and I know I didn't put it on the slide because we didn't want to have too many complicated numbers, but I ran some numbers earlier today. In Lansing, the way we have this projected, at the 5% discount for those first 10 years. I showed the first 3 years, but that first 10-year savings would be on the order of $7 to $8 million for Lansing. Over the course of the 50-year contract, Lansing alone would be projected to save upwards of $45 million over the course of the entire contract. So it's a significant savings over the long term. When we add all these numbers up, again, it all depends on how many communities join and how much water use these costs are distributed amongst. But the overall savings for the south suburbs over the course of, and actually we have a 99-year deal with the group in Indiana. So over that course of a time, the estimates are in the billions in terms of collectively what the south suburbs would save over the coming century.
Talk a little bit about using some of the land in here in Lansing where that might come through?
Excuse me?
Where if you were going to use some of the land in Lansing, where might that come through?
There are different options right now, but there are a couple parcels that we've at least made preliminary internet searches on and driven past, and it would ultimately need to be a parcel that's large enough, that's situated in the right position where the infrastructure would be and where the primary corridors would be for major pipelines. So yes, are there a couple in Lansing that we've contemplated? Yes, there are. Not necessarily want to share that at this point, but there definitely are. There's also a couple in a couple other communities.
Now, Eric, you said that have you gotten the okay from Gary and Highland and Munster to go through those? I mean, is that all? I mean, is that for sure?
We have gotten the okay from Gary, from their mayor. Until we have much more, completed engineering plans, we're not going to necessarily have permits for construction, but that will be the next step. But we've got a conceptual approval from the mayor of Gary with his, he's a new mayor, he just got here in January. So, and the majority of the route through the other communities, what we're really looking at is working through the NIPSCO right-of-ways. And we've had preliminary conversations, especially the group in Indiana who has all those relationships. Preliminary conversations with NIPSCO have begun as well.
I'm a positive guy. I'm positive that this would work, but in the event that somebody or some village or town says, no, we're not going to allow that to happen, the monies that are spent, on this project, is that refundable to the towns that are jumping in on this?
At this point, the agency has deemed it a non-refundable fee. There's going to be these costs that, in order to get those answers with complete certainty, they're going to need to go through these costs. What I will say is because we have a contractual agreement with the group in Indiana, and right now it is a pre-development agreement. The intent is to have that turned into a full development agreement once we have all of our contractual agreements in Illinois. And it will be their responsibility to bring the water to the state line at the designated location when that time comes at the cost that we've agreed to up front. So it will really be there, and if they, if there's a certain street that they're not allowed to go down and they've got to bend over a couple other blocks, or if there's
No extra charge.
no, I mean, the contract, they will be, same thing, risk and reward. We've got very good cost estimates, we believe, of where we are. We believe we've got a sufficient level of conservatism in order to be able to make the promises that we're making in our own water supply contracts with the South Suburban communities. Ultimately, they will be taking on a little bit of risk. If everything goes perfect for them, maybe they'll do better. Just like a construction contract, there's risk and reward. But one way or the other, we'll have a firm contract with them, and part of that, it's almost going to operate as a design build, and there will be contingencies built into that.
Dan, I'm sorry, Jay. Dan, can you tell me what we're voting on next week, or if we would potentially be on the next board meeting? Are we voting on the 50-year contract agreement, or would we be voting for an agreement to basically find out what our rate would be potentially in 2028? And what are we voting on? I haven't get the full legal terms.
Aaron, you want to address that a little bit?
It would essentially be both. It would be the water supply contract, is really, that's what the agency is looking to accumulate to put its financing into place, as well as the initial application fee, which would be the $181,000. Here's the thing though, with the water supply contract, we know, and we're very confident, that honoring everything that's in that contract for the next 50 years, based on Hammond's projected rate that they're going to be charging Cal City and Chicago Heights, we will be there. We'll be able to do that. Now, if somehow within the next 5 or 6 years, Lansing gets a sweetheart deal from Hammond to the point where your rate is so low that we can't, the agency can't meet the terms of that contract, well then Lansing would be under no obligation to take the water from the agency. It would be, that's a little bit of a risk to the agency if you end up with a real sweetheart deal. But that's where, again, I think Lansing's in the catbird seat in order, you can strike the best deal that you can in either case.
Aaron, I've reviewed the information and obviously taken this in for the first time in a presentation. What we're talking about is really a historic type of change or option for change for our village. I have the utmost respect for Mayor DeGraff, who's still on the air listening.
I'm still there.
He's still there.
All right. So it becomes kind of a relationship-based thing, like who do you put your trust in for how you're going to get your water for your village. I'd just ask you to talk a little bit about yourself and your experience in these matters. I see you're listed as an agency engineer. I'm pretty sure Mayor DeGraff has never built a water supply system for 14, communities plus Joliet. But I'm just wondering about your experience in these matters. Who would we actually be hitching our wagon to as far as the expertise to know the difference between what size pipe is needed and what happens when Joliet turns the shower on and we don't, that kind of thing.
That's an absolutely stellar question and a very important one, without a doubt. And when we met with the group of 16 communities back in February, we had in attendance representatives from the 2 other engineering firms that Robinson is partnered with at this point. I'm not saying that there might not be more, quite frankly. Joliet has its own engineering team already in tow too. But I can share that in my personal experience, I have been involved with the Southland Group for these last 4 years. I was involved with the South Suburban Jowell Group at its very tail end before it went by the wayside with Harvey and so forth back 6-7 years ago. I was involved in the team these last 3 years or so. The project is about 99% complete. Morton Grove and Niles in the north suburbs They very quickly made a $90 million investment to break away from Chicago, and now they now get their water supply from Evanston. Robinson was partnered up with 4 other engineering firms where we completed phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 engineering, all the construction within a 2-year period. I mean, it was a rush job. We weren't the lead on it. We were brought in to help these other firms. But a couple of those firms who have been with Robinson every step of the way as we've put together these cost estimates over these last few years. One of them is Stanley Consultants. Stanley is an international engineering firm that does infrastructure work, water, wastewater, power, electrical stuff. They were actually the program manager for New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. They're a big organization, well over 1,000 employees, and they work all over the world. They've been involved with the city of Houston for the past 30 years in a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure improvement down there. They're headquartered in Houston. They've had an office in Oak Brook for the last, 15 years or so. So a couple of their water system experts in Oak Brook have been guiding us in the background all along. Stanley's primary responsibility, Stanley's not in Oak Brook. They are up in Rosemont. The other firm is in Oak Brook. Stanley's primary role in this would be to design and oversee the construction of the water treatment plant. Okay? LAN, which is Lockwood, Andrews, and Newnham, they're the ones headquartered in Houston. Stanley's headquartered in Muscatine, Iowa. But they work internationally. LAN is headquartered in Houston. They are the ones that have done this 30-year infrastructure program for the city of Houston. Their expertise is the intake into Lake Michigan. They have designed and constructed numerous surface water intakes throughout the entire Great Lakes. And so their primary responsibility will be the intake along with the raw water pump station and the shore facilities that will be right there at the Buffington Harbor site. And they would also serve as the QC/QA engineer for a lot of the large diameter pipelines, which they also have a lot of experience in. Robinson's role, obviously Robinson has a lot of the knowledge of the historic infrastructure here in the south suburbs with a lot of the municipal relationships. We would be involved with all of the surveying, all of the right-of-way needs, a lot of the pipeline design and the pumping station of the facilities on the Illinois side of the border where a lot of our client communities are. So it's a team effort, and certainly we put a lot of those credentials on the board back in February, but I didn't want to bore you guys with all that tonight.
Karen, I guess one thing I just want to
regarding the engineering, but there's also, when you look at ISO, Mike Roth and Bob Shilstrom and others who have gone through this from a legal standpoint, Indiana infrastructure people, we've got to know them, true professional developers who this is not their first rodeo. So you look at the composite team of professionals that we have worked with and had opportunities to meet and talk with. It's a very impressive group. And from my perspective, the whole idea of critical mass is essential. Partnerships is essential. The ability to work with professional people is as you accurately say, I'm not an engineer. I've not put one of these water systems together in my life. But I had confidence to know in a high degree of reliability upon those who do this. But once I see the experience and put all this together, I realize, again, looking at the numbers, and I'm thankful that Dan has an accounting background. When you start looking at these, even as a banker, I look at the tremendous reward that's out there for the relatively low risk, especially in the situation of Lansing, where you're looking at leveraging this against what potential Hammond will do. In my mind, it becomes kind of a no-brainer. It becomes a situation where you say to yourself, what do we have to lose and what do we have to gain? And the idea of working, what excites me, whether it's in this situation or any other, is the idea of working together as a region, whether the DuPage Water Commission or some of those groups up north in Lake County. Some of these partnerships have been developed over the years and been very successful. Frankly, we haven't done a very good job historically in the South Suburbs to put together partnerships, teamwork. And when I think about the risk reward in this situation, it excites me, as I talked about earlier, I mentioned it, it excites me to think about the possible win-win-win that we have here, where we're no longer being held hostage by the city of Chicago, for that matter, the city of Hammond. I'm hoping that we can work on this together with the 6, 7, 8, 9 communities that we have in mind right now, and then Joliet comes on board, because it'll be a tremendous win for all of us.
I agree with you, Mayor DeGraff. It's definitely a win-win situation for Lansing. Even the cost of this thing, like you said, if Hammond does approach us and lowers our gallons, our dollars, it's still going to win for the Lansing residents, whether we get it from Hammond or the Southland Water. So it is really a win-win, like you said, for Lansing. But like you said, not to be held hostage by either the city of Chicago or the city of Hammond. It's a win-win for the Southland. So I appreciate your presentation.
As do I, but you mentioned $181,000 application fee, and then you mentioned a water supply contract. What's the total dollar we're going to have to come up with before July 1st?
50% of 181, so it's about 90,825, if I remember.
So the 181 was the total of both of us.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Aaron, is there a provision in the contract, as for the very first time we talked about it, and as you alluded to a couple times here tonight, with our rates that are extremely competitive with Hammond, should the village, and again, this is a decision that's sort of being laid out, this will be 6, 7 years down the road, because our contract with Hammond is for 6 more years, and the SWA doesn't really contemplate having service until 2027 or 2028. Is there a provision in the contract that allows us without penalty to decide down the road, if there is a better option with Hammond, can the village leaders at that time choose to continue to receive water from the city of Hammond, or by exercising this contract, are we, what would be the penalty if we adopt this contract and the village decides 6 or 7 years down the road that, as you said, we're in the catbird seat, if the option is better the other way around, what would be the penalties?
I think what it would boil down to is if you had such a great deal with Lansing 6 years from, or with Hammond 6 years from now, and the agency couldn't meet those terms, if we still couldn't be 5% below that, well, then you would have no obligation to buy the water. And I think if that's something that it would help Lansing to have something in writing from the agency to that effect, because really Lansing is the only community that the agency is working with that we believe is in this situation. I really believe that you're in the best situation of everyone. I don't want to speak for the entire agency board. I do know that our chairman is here, but I don't think having a letter to that effect would be out of bounds. Mayor?
Honestly, I don't think that's a problem at all. I don't think that our board really doesn't put at all object to that provision.
No, that's fine. And I just want to say, it's as you said, Aaron, it's driven by the fee that the agency would be able to or not to offer to Lansing. That would be the driver.
That is correct.
And if we chose to go with Hammond and our contract is 7 years, and in 7 years we can choose to come back here as an initial investor, or do we kind of start over?
That's a great question. I haven't contemplated it, but I would imagine that the water agency would always be welcoming new customers, and certainly this initiation fee, which is important to the agency in the short term, I believe that would be honored. I could easily see making the case to have it be honored.
Yeah, again, I can't speak for the full board. From my perspective, it would be.
I didn't hear that.
Don, could you repeat that?
I said I can't speak for the full board, but from my perspective, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay, anything else for the mayor at this time?
Just, before we vote on this next meeting, I would appreciate just input from our village attorney, just on some of those, side agreements that are potentially being discussed, and just some legal input from our council, just to ensure that there are those protections, and we have a choice, come that time when water service will be available from the SWA, so, yeah.
Very good, I appreciate that, Seth, thank you. Okay, anything else? All right.
Thank you all, your tremendous audience.
Aaron, thank you. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we're going to take a couple of minutes here, not on the agenda, but because there's been some incidents in the area, in the region, as trustee Zeldenrust and some of the other trustees alluded to earlier. Communities across the country are continuing to grieve and to protest following the May 25th death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. This past Sunday on May 31st, those protests turned violent, and our town was directly impacted, as were a number of other South suburban municipalities. We probably 2 to 3 dozen of our businesses were targeted and suffered some losses. So to bring the board up to date, I wanted to ask Chief Murrin, Superintendent Richardson to brief us a little bit on activities within your departments, how things got handled on Sunday, and what are some of the updates as we sit here Tuesday night.
Thank you, Administrator Podgorski. I really appreciate the kind words from Trustee Hart, Trustee, and all of you, actually. Sunday was a difficult day, one I've never seen. I've been with the department for 35 years. I've never seen anything like it in all my life. Complete and utter chaos, complete utter lawlessness, disregard for law, disregard for order. Started around noon in Calumet City with a protest demonstration. We were not made aware of that taking place, but we were quickly summoned over there to help them as that protest got out of control. Property started getting looted, destroyed, so we sent some officers there. That protest spilled into Lansing a short time later, and they came in droves. I would say 20 to 40 cars, 30 deep, very mobile, very coordinated, 3 to 4 people deep in each car. These were not protesters, these were not demonstrators, these were just people hell bent on doing damage and wreaking havoc to our community. They started in the Landings, tops and bottoms, Burlington, quickly moved out of the Landings, down Torrance Avenue, headed to Walmart, and did damage at Walmart, but there were several businesses up and down the Torrance Avenue corridor that suffered damage. The problem we had was we had only a handful of officers working. We normally don't schedule 30 officers for a shift, which even that wouldn't have been enough, but so we would respond to one location for a call of damage or looting. We'd go to that location, secure that. We'd get a call to another location. We'd leave the one location, go to the other location. They'd go back to the other location and finish the job of looting it and damaging it, whatever they were doing. We had, just to give you an idea, we had about 47 police calls for service between just noon and 4 p.m. I think in a normal day, 24-hour period, we handle about that. 88 calls came in between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. that day. The 911 center usually answers about 250 calls to 300 calls a day. period of time between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. on that day on Sunday, they answered over 675 calls. We quickly realized that really early on that we needed help, and we put an all-call out to our police department, all members to come in and help. I can't tell you how proud I am, and I get a little emotional about this because all of the men and women of our department, except those that were out of town or on vacation, came to help. They left their homes, they left their families to come and help their fellow officers, to help our community try to get through this. Even the one who was on vacation, who landed at Midway or O'Hare at 8 o'clock, came in at 9 o'clock to say, what can I do? Tremendous response from our dispatchers, our patrol officers. Again, it was all hands on deck. We established a command center quickly in our classroom area. We did our incident command, what we do all the time. We have these major incidents. We tried to contact fellow departments for help, but they were in the same situation we were. They couldn't get enough police officers or people to respond themselves, so we were kind of on our own, just like everybody else. We started finally getting a little bit of good ground around that 2, 3, 4 o'clock range, probably closer to 4 o'clock, where we were able to get businesses secured up. We were working with business owners. Once we had some people on staff, we went business to business to business early on to ask them to close their businesses on Sunday to prevent any further damage or any not property damage, but loss of life, because they did not have any regard. They would break into a business with people in the business and just take what they wanted. Some of the businesses, again, like Dan mentioned, he hit it right on the head. I'd say probably 20 or so businesses suffered some damage. Thankfully, because of our quick responses, not all of them were looted, but some businesses were hit harder than others. Those that had smaller items, your cell phone stores, where people could just reach in and grab a bunch of them and leave, they suffered some monumental loss. Walmart, big business, did not suffer a big loss. I was on the way in. We got word they were headed to Walmart. I pulled in Walmart. I got there just a little bit too late, and by the time I was pulling in the parking lot, my siren was going. About 30 of them were coming out of Walmart, empty-handed, thankfully, but they did break the windows. I was never so thankful to see my friends at Public Works, Gary and Tommy Botkin and that payloader, while I was at Walmart, to start blocking that parking lot off to keep other people from coming in. So I can't thank this Gary enough, and Tommy for coming out on Sunday, and all the guys, Public Works came out, were great. Leaving equipment behind to block and barricade things. Many of you have probably seen it out there. The strategy became collect or gain the property, secure the property, and don't leave it. So we would secure Walmart, for instance, but nobody left it. So we had to post somebody there, because like I said, the minute you left it, somebody broke back into it. So we started doing that. Once we started doing that, we got a better foothold, and we were able to drive the people, the looters out, I should say. Again, unfortunately, Walmart, AT&T, BP Amoco, Burlington, Unitech, Walgreens, Ridge and Torrance, to name a few, suffered some losses and damage. You saw the board ups, I'm sure. So what I can say is we contacted every key holder we could get a hold of to let them know what was damaged. We've been speaking with them. They couldn't have been more appreciative of our contacting them, of our staying with the business as long as we could. Some of those folks who lost what they lost came in yesterday and gave us food and thanked us for what we did. And we're so appreciative of our efforts, even though they lost, damaged, lost product, whatever. So it really inspired us there. Soren, can't thank you enough either, buddy. Pulling up at Walmart, saying, what do you need? All in. Chad calling me numerous times. I'm going to stage fire department personnel in case fires begin. Everybody just working together and doing whatever it took. Again, Sunday was a beautiful day. Everybody could have ignored their cell phones and stayed home and enjoyed their family time, but everybody here, everybody outside here, and everybody, the other personnel just came out to help. Traffic has been kind of fluid. As you know, the expressway ramps have been closed, which has helped us. About the last 3 days or so, around 2 o'clock, we asked IDOT to shut the I-80 exits coming off the expressway down. That has helped us, I believe. Today, in fact, there wasn't an exit open from I-57 to Klein Avenue. I know that made a little bit difficult traveling for those trying to get home, and I'm sorry for that, but you know, we hope at some point here in the near future to open that back up, but to have a partnership with IDOT, and the mayor sent me Senator Sims, LG Sims, thankfully, who made some calls for us to make some of that happen, and I can appreciate that for the mayor put him in contact with me. We were doing everything we could. Ken Reynolds with the Cobras, trying to keep everybody up to date. Thank you for that. We hope tomorrow, I should back up. Monday we went about recontacting businesses. Zorn went about checking out board ups to make sure they were still secured. Monday we went about going back and filing case reports and police reports for these businesses so they would have something for their insurance companies, and having face-to-face contacts with them if we could. So tomorrow, it sounds like Walmart plans to open. They have employees on scene there today, but their plan was to open tomorrow, so we've loosened some of the entranceway off of Torrance to get into Walmart. Some of the businesses and landings are going to reopen as well, so we have a little entrance in the landings that is opening up as well. But overall, we're trying to keep it fairly locked down because I don't know how long this is going to go on. With that said, we did have some minor graffiti along with this. Gentleman in town, Andy Heisinger from Great Lakes Odyssey, emailed us, said, let us know where you have graffiti, we'll take care of it. We gave him 2 locations that we knew we had the graffiti. Took his pressure washer over there, it's gone. You wouldn't even know we had it. Now again, the business owners, by providing us food, support, just a phone call, tremendous. Again, Mike, I think you said Lansing strong. There's definitely so many good people in this town. I don't believe for 1 minute that any of those 20 or 30 cars that were 3 or 4 deep, I don't think any of them were Lansing residents. I saw a lot of those cars didn't have license plates on them, had license plates taken off of them, or had license plates covered up. I can't tell you if they were Lansing or not, but I don't believe they were. I think most of those were out-of-towners just intent on doing damage and destruction, just as they did all across the suburbs. So,
Chief, I consider, of course, like our trustees, I'm just enormously proud and so grateful to you, our public works, our building department, our fire department, and everybody that poured out to help our community that day. But you did have to report to me that we had 1 officer injured.
Yeah.
If you could.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that too. Yeah, 2 officers. One suffered a minor injury. A car had clipped him. Again, we would try to stop cars; they would just drive away. You try to take any kind of action, it was like we weren't there. So a car clipped one of our officers in the calf. He was fine. Worked the rest of the shift actually. The other officer pulled up on a looting incident at the Citgo gas station, and actually got confronted by the looters. Got himself pushed into his own squad car, head banged up a little bit and a wrist injury, but we took him to the hospital. Thankfully, the report, he's fine. So two officers were injured, thankfully minor. 4 squad cars were damaged, fortunately minor. But all while that was going on, we had a pursuit through town, from another town. We had other calls for service other than these calls to handle, fairly significant ones, because those that were looting were trying to steal or did steal people's vehicles by force. So we had our hands full. And again, guys, women came rose to the occasion. And I was, later in the day, was in the command center, and all the young folks that you have seen me hire over the last 3 years, each of them reported that command center and looked at me and said, "Where do you need me to go, Chief?" And without hesitation, you know. And again, you always wonder when the day comes, and every one of our folks stepped right up. And we've been in touch with the area departments around, other chiefs. Hammond had an incident tonight, Munster. This is still very fluid, still very active. So we're still taking a lot of precautions to ensure our business community. We've identified our critical areas, and that's where we're concentrating our efforts on. But we're in constant contact with area departments, sharing information, and making sure our folks know about it, and then pushing it out to as many as we can here. But we all feel a sense of helplessness. We feel terrible for what happened. We feel like we couldn't do enough. And that's it.
Thank you.
I'd like to say we had a lot, but we had one. I wish I could have caught all 30 of the people coming out of Walmart. That's how every store had 10 to 15 people coming out of it, with one officer responding to each location sometimes, and just overwhelmed. We got some license plates, but I don't think that's going to materialize into much. Yeah, I wish we could say I had 600 arrests that day, but it's just, it just didn't materialize. So.
Chief, with these expressway ramps closed, obviously we're going to have more traffic on Ridge. Our residents are just going to have to understand that when we see a ton of cars up on Ridge Road, Wentworth Avenue, these are all arteries that are being used in lieu of expressway exits, I'm sure, for the next little while.
Yeah, and today, in fact, like today, we shut down, Munster shut down, Hammond shut down,
yeah.
And you were closed all the way down to Griffith, you know, and Klein Avenue. So basically 394 to, I think, Glenwood, Lansing would be the way to come in. We evaluate that so far every day at about, in the morning we get together. We evaluate our operational period, what we could change, and we're constantly moving that. I think there's going to be maybe some adjustments to that as time goes on to allow more access. And the IDOT truck drivers can only take so much abuse, and we've already responded down there to help them out because people are irate not being able to get off the expressway. So.
Chief, I was sitting with my neighbor outside on Sunday, and he happened to have a scanner, and we were listening in on some of what was going on, and I just, as a resident, was just so proud with the professionalism in which the dispatchers handled the calls, and all the officers that were responding with keeping their composure, keeping their cool, and really you got a sense, but listening in a little bit, that things, although they were out of control, were in control.
Yep.
And the speed at which your officers were responding from business to business, I mean, I just, hats off to your guys. And I you know, you hear stories of these situations, and they get heated and escalated, and police departments sometimes are put in bad positions, and you get bad circumstances, and but your department just handled it with excellence. And so my hat's off to your entire department.
Thank you. I appreciate the text that day. I really do. Funny thing was, a little funny story out of the whole deal. My kid was working. He had to run home and get boxed up, get a whole thing of Tylenol from the cupboard. Everybody had their pounding headaches by the end of the day because the sirens were going so much. So we had to supply this with Tylenol. But yeah, it was a tough day. But thank you though very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hey, Chief Gary, can you talk a little bit about how Public Works was involved?
Thank you. Chief, we are just happy that we could be there to support you. I will tell you, for a year and a half for me, having a city radio that I've never heard go off, maybe 1 or 2 times I heard PW1. And I had to ask Deputy Chief Bailey, I said, so when they say PW1, how am I supposed to respond to dispatch? Sunday, I was in my yard and my wife came yelling because my radio was just going off. I have never been experienced anything like it. And when we received the call, one thing I will say, I want to praise, and if you have not noticed, the Public Works Department. We have some men that were willing to put themselves side by side with Lansing PD. And from the time I received the call at 11:30, by 1 o'clock, we had so many locations closed up for the police department. I was riding around town. We were picking up bricks, blocks from wherever we could to shut down the areas that we needed. And Chief said it right. Once you go to one area, next thing you know, you had to go to another area. And these guys, Bakins and a few of them in the front end loaders, they were driving like they were on a speedway. But these guys, I'm proud to say, I put out the call around 12 o'clock. And before I got here, they were moving. Sunday was one of the first times we really had to only use our radios. And I think next week I told them I'm taking away all the phones, because the communication we had with the radios, it meant saved a lot of time to get things around. Today, prime example, I got a call from Lieutenant Bailey at 4:15. By 5 o'clock, we had shut down the areas they wanted us to shut down, because these guys are willing to respond at any cost. And I'm surprised he's still sitting here, because they have been working around the clock. Zoran, thank you and your department. Sunday, we both were here overnight. He monitored Village Hall, I monitored Public Works, we monitored the streets. So I just want to thank everybody for their support, for the department. Every piece of equipment that we had was out on the street for a good 24, well, some still out there. Yeah. And our residents have been very helpful. I got a couple calls from Chase Bank today. They wanted to buy lunch for the guys, for helping to secure their facilities. So I just want to say thank you to the residents in the community for your support. And Chief, anytime, we're here to support whatever we can do. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Chief. And as you guys alluded, I mean, we could bring just about every department head up here because everybody was in on it. Chad and Zoran got a spot on the next agenda item, so we're going to have them come up and talk about coronavirus. But they could just as easily be up here talking about what happened on Sunday. Mayor, so I didn't ask you if you wanted to comment on this. You had a chance to meet with our Lieutenant Governor Stratton yesterday. She came out to kind of survey the damage. You had a chance to meet with her. I don't know if you wanted to share any of that information with everybody.
I do, so thank you. I was going to jump in later. So yesterday, mid-morning, Mr. Reynolds came in my office and said that the Lieutenant Governor just called, cold call, and wanted to come to Lansing and see what we had experienced during the day on Sunday. And so Mr. Reynolds quickly made those arrangements. I did not have time to go home and put on dress clothes or anything. I wore what I had. And he was contacted by her security, who is a member of the Illinois State Police, and within an hour and a half, they were at the municipal center. And Mr. Reynolds and I went each in our own cars, as the Lieutenant Governor did, and she also had another member of her staff with her, so there were 4 cars in the caravan. We stopped first at the Walgreens, which is boarded up, at Torrance and Ridge. We didn't get out of the cars there, but as we traveled north, Mr. Reynolds led us in his vehicle and pointed out, and I have a feeling was in contact with the officer from the state police who was in the car with the Lieutenant Governor, and pointed out some of the damage as we went down Torrance Avenue. And even though Bud and I had traveled that route on Sunday night after dark, and then again at sunrise on Monday morning, following the Lieutenant Governor's car driving down Torrance Avenue, there were just so, like the chief spoke of, there's so many emotions. You're so proud because our guys stopped it. It could have been so much worse. And on the other hand, you know, we feel so bad for our business owners, for our residents that depend on those businesses. Some of them may not come back. We know that. The Lieutenant Governor and I actually talked about that. So anyway, we pulled into the landings. I knew from reports from the chief the previous day that Tops and Bottoms was our first business that got hit, and it is definitely one of the worst. It's completely cleared out, which I had seen earlier that morning. So we stopped there, and everybody in the caravan got out of their vehicles. And actually, our building commissioner, Zoran Savic, met us there, and Chief Marin came by too. So I have to share with you that the Lieutenant Governor had tears in her eyes when she met all of us and saw what we're going through. So she also visited Calumet City. I thought it was just really great that I haven't written her a letter yet, but I will. So thanks again, you guys, for being there on Monday for that. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Great job. You never missed a beat. Oh, by the way, the Lieutenant Governor's coming in, so thank you, sir. Ken, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Well, maybe you covered it. It's just your contacts with Senator Sims, as I believe Chief Murray alluded to, getting us as many possible resources, not only for Sunday itself, not so much in the moment, but to give Chief as many options as possible as we continue with this fluid nature of this day to day and monitoring what's out there, trying to filter through the inaccurate information and then being able to react to what is accurate. So we're all basically connected together in doing this, and our role at the admin level is to support what they're doing and make it easier for them and give them as many resources as possible. So I believe that meeting has already led to some things, and we're some stuff we're going to keep under our belt, but it gives the chief more options and more resources depending on how long this persists.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Prokowski.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to everybody. Hey, lest anybody forget, we still have a pandemic going on, so I don't want anybody to think that we're done here tonight. We're going to go into our bi-weekly coronavirus update, and we want to make sure every department head gets a chance to come up and show their department off tonight. So now we're going to go to Chief Coinga and the fire department for a little coronavirus update.
Thank you, Administrator Podgorski. Yeah, we don't want to forget the coronavirus and all of this. Kind of as we've gone down and reviewed kind of the last couple of weeks, just kind of where we're at as a state, county, and then kind of boil it down to where we are in our town. The state has crossed over that 100,000 level. We're now at over 121,000 total cases. Out of those, though, 5,400 total deaths. The positive of this is we have the state as a whole has a 92% recovery rate when you look at this pandemic. Cook County, we have 30,333 confirmed cases in our county, and of that we've got 1,329 total deaths within the county. Shrinking it down to Lansing, our town has 365 total cases. Again, we increased, let's see, I'll do quick math, I want to say it was 64 from the last time we met. And Cal City kind of has the most with 542.
Chicago Heights has 511, and South Holland has 375 as of this morning. As we move into June, though, I am happy to report that we continue to experience a decrease in the frequency of our COVID-related calls. It's kind of sad, but but a good thing. The department has transported, I want to say, the count today was 34 of those 365 total cases. So roughly, we've only known about 10% of the cases that we've transported. The other 90%, we don't ever know if they're, who we're getting unless they tell us that they had it. I thought we were going to kind of get over that hump, and I thought the county was going to kind of get us those addresses, but it seemed to hit a little bump in the road, and we're still hopeful that maybe that can happen. Again, seeing a trend of our standard precautions calls, which are kind of our COVID possibility calls, lowering. And as much as I hate to admit it, it's kind of nice to hear that we're getting the calls back again for the, the sore foot. So, kind of a positive in all of that. One of the other things I've kind of brought to everybody's attention as we kind of struggle for the PPE and kind of keeping those levels up is our gowns. Happy to report that we were able to take 500 gallons, take receipt of those. So we slowly are staying ahead of that shortage game, and I think right now we're feeling really good where we're at, especially if we roll into our emergence of this in the fall. So all things considered, I think we as a department, I'll probably speak for PD as well, I think we're pretty well set to kind of battle whatever happens. Somebody's gonna bring a tomato up here and throw it at me. I talk about that UVC lamp. I got a update again this week, and it's the darn bulbs now. I mean, they were still waiting on the bulbs. I know I told you 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks. Philips is just, we gotta blame Philips. They're the ones that are holding us up. As soon as we get those bulbs, 2 to 3 weeks, they tell me. I will let you know when we'll have it here. I mean, you guys probably believe it's just like some thing I made up, but no, I'll actually bring it here so you can see it. And they kind of have a final note to kind of get us somewhat off of the whole COVID thing. Kind of another thing that we always talk about but never see is that engine. Well, I'm happy to say that the engine was delivered to Fire Service in St. John, and we've had our engine committee actually see it, so we know it's there. They went out there today. I do have a couple of pictures. I think Deputy Chief Grady sent a couple of pictures around. I'll make sure that we get the pictures he had today of it as well. Out to all you guys, so you made me believe that I am truthful on it. But we're hoping to see that kind of get in service, probably, not gonna say 2 or 3 weeks, July 1st or 2nd week, we should have it in service. So that's what I have for this evening. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
No deaths?
Go ahead.
No deaths reported from Lansing?
I don't have that number. They don't really, they kind of keep that a tight number.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
So, now that we've moved into phase 3 of the Restore Illinois plan, this is the recovery stage. Offices are allowed to reopen. Retail shops, barber shops, salons are allowed to reopen with capacity limits. One of the things the governor did do is he did allow a small caveat to the restaurants and bars and allowed them to open up to outdoor dining. So that's created another layer of enforcement and guidelines that we've tried to bring out to the business community and then to make sure that they're adhering to it. And so for that report, I'm going to turn it over to our building commissioner, Zoran Savage.
Thank you very much, Administrator Podgorski. I would like to just give a short report on my building department and what we have been able to do in order to help all of our struggling businesses get back on their feet. Once we received the governor's orders and permission to move forward with the phase 3 and the restoration requirements and guidelines of our bars and restaurants, Mr. Reynolds was wonderful in getting us the information and the way we were going to move forward. We quickly put together a meeting where we sat down with our administrator, our mayor, as well as Mr. Reynolds, my department, our health inspector, read through all of the information, deciphered everything on our plans to move forward. We put together, which you will be able to find in that packet that I handed out on the page 3 and 4, a checklist of what we were looking for, what was important, in quickly helping all of our businesses get back on their feet. We formulated a plan on how to get out there, and again, thank you to both Mr. Bartworski as well as Mr. Reynolds and our mayor for getting out there and helping us to visit some of these restaurants and being able to speak to them and explain to them that we're here to help them reopen and help explain a lot of this to them. Many of them did not have the information, others had already printed it out themselves, and we're again working on beginning to keep that social distancing going and reopening a lot of those businesses now in terms of being able to put those chairs out there and having utilizing some of their patios. Others decided to make up their own patios, which was wonderful. Again, we went out there and assisted them in understanding the 6-foot rules and where they were to place those tables and how many people were able to be at those tables at one time, and the sanitizer, and where the waiting areas would be for following, the social distancing and so on. So we also brought them out the actual picture that you have on page 1. I asked them to have these posted so that obviously everyone would be aware of what the new rules were, along with the guidelines. So with number 1, with the continuing to wear the face mask, social distancing. Number 2, with the 6 foot. The number 3 with the how the chairs were to be placed on the outside dining area there, with tables being only 6 people per table and tables being 6 foot away from one another, as well as the washing of the hands, keeping sanitizers out for their employees to be able to utilize, as well as having sanitizers at the door for all of the guests that were, coming in once they would, obviously, for only certain individuals that had doors that would obviously properly open to the exterior, were they allowed to have any tables by those outside door areas. Again, sanitize sprays and so on, and cleaners, and of course they changed the rules in terms of being able to pour and re-pour glasses with drinks. They have to obviously at this point now be able to bring new glasses out, dispose of the old glass if they were, if they're going to go with paper cups and so on, and also change the way we used to pour a lot of our drinks ourselves, where we just go up and help ourselves at, like say McDonald's and so on, to where now they bring the drinks out and then they wouldn't reuse the cups. So the page 2 is pretty much the same as page 1, kind of giving you the idea of what the checklist was put together on 3 and 4. I could say we walked Thursday afternoon as well as all day Friday and visited every single one of our businesses, every single one of our restaurants. They were very thankful. They realized we were there to help them get reopened and not give them a hard time. They realized that we were happy to see this move forward, and they were obviously there to support us and anything that we asked of them. So we have a good handful of restaurants that are going to be utilizing this. Restaurants like J.J. Kelly's, Bozo's is going to have like 3 tables out there. We had them move the tables around a little bit so they would meet the 6-foot rule. They were very cooperative. Johnny K's is going to utilize his patio. Outriggers began to put tables out, began to try to put together a little bit of business for themselves. We also had Linney Q's working with us as well, and us with them. So it was very positive. I'm glad to see that we are moving forward from this whole pandemic and this coronavirus shutdown. So we are making progress. I see that our residents are excited, the businesses are excited. So we're moving forward with that. I'd like to just wish everyone I'm glad to see everyone here. We've been safe through this pandemic, and we're all healthy and here today. I've got to follow in line with all of you and thank our police department and everyone that was out this weekend with what happened. And once I heard what happened, I jumped out to see what I could do to help, and they were just incredible. They were wonderful. I was in security starting at 18 in law enforcement after that, and I can honestly say you guys were just awesome. You did a great job, and even though I wish we could have stopped everything that was happening, I was very touched, as Chief said, when our some of the business owners brought us breakfast and lunch, and I said, "But you lost everything." And he said, "Yeah, but we still have us. We're still here." And then I realized that the merchandise can't be replaced, and we did do everything we could. And he said, "I watched the videotapes." He said, "I even saw you running around out there. I don't know what you were doing." He said, "But you guys were great." He said, "All of you," he said, "responded. Everybody tried to stop these people. And unfortunately, we did what we could." And he said, "I realized," he said, "that if it wasn't for you, God knows what else would have happened. It would have been so much worse." And so, again, thanks to Chief and the police department, along with Public Works getting out there and blocking everything off and the highways getting closed. I mean, then they realized that they had to get out of town. Otherwise, they were stuck in town with us, and then we were going to catch up to all of them. So, again, once he brought those sandwiches, then I realized that he really appreciated what we did. Even though he lost all of his merchandise, he still came in with a smile and bags of Subway and Dunkin' Donuts, and he said, "Here's not only lunch, here's breakfast too." He said, "So, you guys, thank you." And he said, "Again, I watched the tape. There's nothing you guys could have done better." So anyway, once again, thanks, you guys were awesome. And I think he is absolutely right. It could have been so much worse. So you guys are just incredible. Thank you, guys. There's a line, as I always like to do, there's another line of people I'd like to thank. I'd like to also announce that we've done really well with our demos in the last few weeks. We've done incredible. We're moving very quickly with these demos, thanks to Robinson Engineering and also the demo company. They've been calling me every day, along with L&N, getting them out there to videotape what they've been demoing and how they've been demoing. They've been moving really quickly. I mean, you give it literally 15, 20 minutes, the house is gone. So they're that good. They've been great. And we're getting down to the last few that are now set and slated for demo. So again, thanks to all of you guys for moving forward at that. We're doing great with that. We're also slating the next group of homes that we'd like to take down and help you cleaning up Lansing. So thanks to all of you. Trustee Zelleros, thank you and your crew for coming out there and helping a lot of our residents that are unable to mow their lawns. I've got out there with my daughters as well in our mowers on the weekends, also helping all of our veterans get a lot of their lawns cut because they're unable to do it, along with a lot of our elderly and handicapped. We understand that at this point, like Boone Township, Thornton Township is not cutting till next month. So the grass, with the amount of rain we've gotten, is just taken off. So we've been getting out there to help. So thank you again, all of your group and all of your volunteers as well. Vivian, our mayor, Dan, Mr. Reynolds, again, thank you guys for helping put together our front lobby and getting it safe with everything we've needed in order to make our first day today a successful opening again of our municipal center. It's been wonderful to finally see those doors open and see our residents come in with smiles. And Tony was great in greeting them and helping them out to kind of get to know where they need to stand and so on, and the new regulations entering our building, our municipal center and the building department. So again, thanks to all of you. Look forward to again moving forward out of all of this and everything we've been through the last few months. So again, thanks Viv for getting everything coordinated in the front lobby there, and the sanitizers and everything else, the stanchions and tables, and Public Works coming in to sanitize and get it clean for us every day. You guys are wonderful people, and I'm glad to be a part of this village. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jordan.
Do you have any other questions for me or anything I can answer for you?
Gordon, I've had several citizens ask about helping to clean up in the landfills. Is there any group organization, are we planning to do anything?
Well, I mean, we could obviously definitely organize groups that'll go out there and help. Again, back to First Church and wonderful people that'll come out and always give us a hand. I think that that's something that we need to now begin to work on, getting things back together. So let's, maybe you and I get together and see what we could put together. I know my building department will come out there and assist and help. We've begun to now do some inspections and so on. That's something I left out. We've begun to now do inspections. We're releasing more permits and so on and so forth for all outside work. So we've been doing a lot of inspections. We also spent a lot of this time cleaning up Lansing. So yes, we could definitely get out there and start, you know, cleaning those landings up. There's a lot to do now all over, but we've been overwhelmed with the amount of things happening at one time. It's been very, very busy around my office as well. So we could definitely do that.
Thanks, Zorn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Zorn.
All right, so Zorn actually gave a good segue. I'll bring up our DOC. Ken Reynolds, talk a little bit about what's going on in phase 3 as we start to reopen offices, including our village offices to the public. As Zorn alluded, today was our first day that we reopened, so I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thank you, Administrator. As you heard a little bit, Zorn kind of gave a preview. We've been talking about what the plans were going to be for the reopening of the municipal center, when and if that was going to happen. We've been closed since March 17th. So obviously we've been working, our full-time staff has still been working and handling everything that we could. You know, so it's looked the same on the inside, other than our residents being there and our visitors being there. And so, you know, I don't want to say we got comfortable, but we knew this day was coming. It was a matter of when, and then what would it look like based on the guidelines that we had from the state. So really about mid-May, we started talking about it. And then when I say we, it's Treasurer Fry, it's the Administrator, it's the Mayor, Clerk Payne, myself, really a lot of input, but admin in particular, trying to look at, and Zorn, what would it look like, and how does a plan based on the guidelines fit our lobby? And I think that's part of it. And I think on the restaurants and bars, you know, each and every footprint is so different, depending on what they can do and what their existing land is and what their current structures are. So you can't write an ordinance or a policy that covers all of it, because you almost have to go there yourself and see it, and our lobby's no different. So some of the things that we came up with for our new normal lobby are the fact that we wanted to reduce our hours. And so at least for the first 2 weeks, to get a feel for where we're at and this transition and opening the lobby again. So we are 9 to 3 on weekdays. We actually started today, and 9 to noon on Saturdays in June for now. And that, again, that's for the first 2 weeks. And the reasoning for the early hours is really a combination of things. It's less total contact with the public, as we are still we still hear data on COVID. We're ensuring that all guests in line are processed. That was something that Treasurer Fry and I had talked about. If we close at 5 and we're only letting so many people in, what happens if they're outside? Now you're extending that. And we can't bring them in like the quote old days and lock the door because of social distancing and number restrictions. So we went with 3 o'clock, and I'll talk about how today went in just a second. Extra time to clean the workstations at the end of the shift. We had input from finance, from the building side, as to what that was going to look like, how they could clean, and what materials would they need to function in this interaction with the community, you know, back and forth under what we were used to and now what needs to be our new normal. Also, the additional time to process the increased amount of payments, our Dropbox and our online payments, or I should say our mail-in payments and online. We've seen many people trying to do what they are supposed to do, but our Dropbox has, would you agree, Treasurer Fry, has been much more crowded than usual. And so those payments have to be processed because they're replacing somebody that originally was standing in line in many cases. So all of those things come through, and then the lobby itself is being thoroughly cleaned, as Zorn alluded to, by a combination of Public Works and then our weekly maintenance staff, or our custodial staff, and thoroughly cleaning that lobby. Not that we didn't before, but making sure that it is as much deep cleaning, I think, as we can do. I gotta give Clerk Payne a lot of credit. She takes a plan when we put something together and really whips it into shape. And that includes the social distancing markers that are now on the floor. She ordered those. So we are allowing essentially 10 or less, which is the restriction right now that we want to put in place based on the square footage requirements of the executive order that's in place. So 10 or less, and when you come in the lobby, the main doors, it basically is 5 waiting areas, and then you have 2 windows that are open on each side. So we can get, depending on how we're doing, we could probably get, 7 people. Any combination of 10 we can get to. Tends to be a little heavier on the clerk side, on the finance side than it is on building, but that we weren't gonna not have spots for the building side as well. So we have directional arrows for the traffic on the floor. It's actually pretty cool. You guys please come in and look, because it looks very well organized. I think that was part of obviously what we should be doing, but it came together like we wanted it to look, including the exit flow of people down basically the middle of the lobby as they work their way out. The non-essential areas of the lobby have basically been roped off by stanchions. All water fountains are covered, all furniture has been removed, the restrooms are still open. All the literature that was in the racks and other items such as pens and et cetera on the so-called writing table have been removed. Actually, a mistake I made a couple of years ago of probably ordering too many giveaway pens has come to help us here, because now if you come in and you need a pen, here's a pen and take care, you can keep it. We don't need that pen back and we don't need to chain it down, et cetera. So we've actually got a good supply of those in place as we work our way through the next several weeks. Multiple hand sanitizer stations located throughout the lobby. I mentioned number of guests. The facial covering and the mask requirement is in place. We have some face coverings that we ordered that are there for those that may forget. We know there are reasons why people can't wear them, i.e. health conditions and so forth. So the person that will be in the lobby, I'm going to call it a Walmart greeter for lack of a better comparison, we will have someone always up there staffing to help facilitate these new procedures, but also to offer them a mask. If they choose not to, we are going to ask them to step outside. We'll hold their place in line, and then we will either come and get them or text them or something to bring them back in. Again, every decision we've made, and the mayor has been clear on this, has been mandated on the safety of our employees and the safety of our guests. And that's been steadfast to us from the beginning as we put this policy together. So that's how we're handling. We don't want to get into a debate or an argument about masks or face coverings. We know there are polar opposite theories. That's the rule. We are going to try and enforce it. I don't like the word enforce, require it, and then ask them for compliance, because we want to help them, but we're asking them also to help our employees and help other guests. We've got decorative garbage receptacles in there. Those are great, Mr. Richardson, thank you. We've got a table in front of all the service windows. So those of you that are familiar with our lobby know you have a tendency to have the leaners. They want to hang on that counter, before the plexiglass was put in place, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we've put another table similar to what you have in front of you, in front of the windows, to provide a little bit of extra space, still allow the transaction to take place, but not necessarily get the leaners and so forth. And so that has paid off today already. Plexiglass windows, Zoran, thank you so much. Zoran did all this work himself and saved us thousands of dollars by just getting the work done, putting this plexiglass up in front of our windows. On Sunday, I really gave him a big hand. I actually held it in place for him for a minute. So, it was about 98%, 99.5% Zoran and me, 0.5% on Sunday to get it ready as everything else was going on. So it looks great, it looks professional, and more importantly, there's an area underneath for the transaction to take place. And our employees, and I'll let Arlette confirm this, but I think our employees are very, A, satisfied, and B, very gratified at the measures that have been taken. And a large part of that goes to Zoran and him wanting to jump in and get this done. We've also installed, one of the catches, if you've come in, we had keypads, like you would see at any transaction, and before COVID, those would be turned back and forth. So our finance department would make their thing, and then they would spin it to the person to put their PIN code in. And so that became an issue, obviously, with the touching part of it. So we were able, with Fabian Newman's help and Arlette, to get these, the typical kind of PIN pads you see. So now on the customer side, they have their push button and the device itself that actually initiates the transaction and syncs up with our computer software stays on the employee side. So that was a little bit of we needed to work through that. Unfortunately, they came in last Thursday, I think it was, and Fabian and Daniel got them put in. Thanks again. and that eliminated some concern about back and forth under the window. The payment clerks, Arlette really put a lot of thought into this and kind of, I don't want to say retrained them, but talked about how to process payments to avoid kind of cross-contamination. So you're basically, using your left hand for one part of things and keeping your right hand here, and then being able to get that in sync, and then hand sanitizer for them when they're done with the transaction. So they're gonna have some clean hands. I don't know how much moisture they're gonna have left in their epidermis when it's done, but again, everything precautionary. The original opening day, one more thing, A-frame signage. Thanks to Gary and his staff and the sign machine, we wanted to have that outside. And so it has the hours and it has the main things that we are enforcing, i.e. social distancing and the numbers restrictions on the outside. And then there are also spots on the outside for overflow people to stand on. Much of what you've seen in other places, we felt it was very important that we set the example on how it was supposed to look. We were supposed to open on Monday. We all know what happened on Sunday, so we made the decision to delay that a day and kind of get our heads together after Sunday. And then we opened at 9 a.m. this morning. I think it looked like, I don't know, it looked like you were opening a brand new hotel. You had the administrator, the mayor, you had the clerk up there, you had Tony Troncoso as our greeter, Arlette was up there, and as we went to unlock the door, I think it just kind of felt, there was like a nervousness. It's been a while.
We should have had a red ribbon.
What's that? Yeah, we could have, I guess we could have done a red ribbon. So we have a line right away. People, there is that contingent of our residents that want to have that transaction. They want that face-to-face, or their form of payment, maybe they need to make that cash payment, they need to do it that way. So we know that, and that's why they were in line, ready to go this morning. It went incredibly smoothly today. I talked to a lot of our employees afterwards, and the biggest thing that I want the trustees to know in particular is that how gracious the customers were. They said it might have been the nicest day our staff did they've ever done. They could have come in angry, they could have come in a lot of ways. And instead they came in basically understanding, being patient, understanding what they had to do. We had absolutely zero issues. And so I know it's day one, but day one's always a big test. And so I'm proud of our staff for giving the input into making it look right. And when you walk in, you could argue that the look might be even better than it was before. I mean, we may not get as many people in there, but it definitely looks professional. We want to continue to enhance that as we transition into these various phases. But we are going to stick to this 10 or less as we are in phase 3. And I don't like the word enforce, as I said, but we are going to make that happen so that we keep our employees safe and the other guests that are in the lobby. So I'll take any questions if you have any.
Ken, what I'd like to just comment on too is that you made mention how Zorn definitely saved the village a lot of money. And at my budget meeting, I know with Arlette and Administrator Podgorski and Zorn, there was not a contract, there was we had just like, it was a bill, not a bill, a quote, thank you, that's what I'm looking for. A quote from a window company to do this. And I mean, it was thousands of dollars. And what I just want to say is it was amazing that Zorn, saved us thousands of dollars to do this. So it's just another way of how Lansing and their employees work together to save the village money.
Yeah, I mean, Zorn's handier in his thumb than I am in my entire body. So again, as he on Sunday just seeing that all fit into place. And again, when you do something on your own and you make a choice like that, it needs to look professional. Right. If it looks cheesy, then you have it, and that's not what it looks. And it's a very professional look. And that's what I'm most proud of. And as awful as Sunday was, you do get a sense of unification through all the departments working together. And that was what I took out of there, being in the office for 6, 7, 8 hours on Sunday. Basically, I'm here, Chief, what do you need? They're out doing their thing, what can I do to help you? And you sense that. You've heard that here tonight, and it's not meant to present to you like some sort of big performance. It's just the truth.
I just want to thank you for keeping the trustees informed. I know how busy you were, the communication, but you did keep us informed. I do appreciate that.
Well,
I don't want to bug you. I know that what you're going through, but you did every couple hours did keep us informed, and I appreciate that.
Again, that's part of my job. We represent this board, and so you need to know what's going on, and more importantly, not listen to, I don't think you guys personally, but not, there's too much noise out there, there's too much rumor, and trying to keep it short, simple, and sweet is what the accuracy is, and not let the noise be the noise, because that's the hardest part. I know the police chase all day on Sunday from the communications, you chase nonsense and try and dispute it, but you can't go in and you know, you've heard, all you have to do is look at any of the posts. No disrespect to anybody in them, but when it comes to facts, if you really don't know what's going on, please don't spread rumors in a situation like that.
Yeah, I just want to tell you too that with all this rioting stuff going on, that people tend to think that the corona stuff is all over. It's not. It's still here, it's strong, and I just love to see the precautions that our village is taking to keep our people, our employees, and everybody else safe. So thanks you guys, thanks everybody out there, thank you very much.
I learned the one thing, Trustee Mann, working for the mayor, when she says I want something, we get it done. So in this case, she was adamant about our decisions were basically from the inside out. Take care of our employees first, work our way out to the lobby and so forth, and that's what we tried to do. And again, Clerk Payne deserves a ton of credit as well. She gets it, and so she makes that vision happen. And I probably had more intense conversations with Arlette than I have in a while about this, because she gave some great input as well. The last thing I'll say is that every single person, names you mentioned, gave input as to how that lobby was going to look. It would not be as good as it did because we all thought of something that the other person had. Because we've never done it before.
Very proud of this village. Mayor, thanks. Got a good group here. Very good. All the way down to the citizens. Like I said, Lansing strong. Thank you.
You bet.
I think we had so many people in the lobby today, because I think maybe an advance report of how great you thought the lobby was going to look got out, and that's why so many people showed up today. I think so.
Is that what it was? We looked like a nervous hotel staff, just opening up for the first time. And it was like, why are we all out here? That's why we had Tony out there. But we wanted to see it. We wanted to see it. More importantly, we wanted the public to see us. And they were there. They were there yesterday morning too, even after Sunday. And they got some regulars that just, I'm here. You know, sorry, not today. But we're back up. We're back up running under the guidelines that we have, and we're happy to be that way.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
All right.
You can hold your applause. I know the police chief got it.
All right. There you go. That's what we're waiting on. Okay, Mayor, that's all I have tonight. Let's turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir. Village Attorney's Report, Mr. Welch.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Finance, Human Relations, Trustee Bassi.
Thank you, Mayor. One item tonight, just discussion on the Visible Music College lease amendment, and I will turn things over to Administrator Podgorski on this one.
Thank you, Sad. This is just a bit of housekeeping. We have come up on the end of the first extension we gave to the Visible Music College. We have JMA, we have our architects going through that original village hall and giving us some quotes on what it would take to do some restoration and to to kind of bring it into the vision that we have out there for Fox Point. So while that's going on, we've just kind of had an agreement with the leadership at Visible Music College. We would just extend their lease for another year. There's still something. There's something bigger to be worked out here. They want to have a permanent home. I think they're understanding how important that building is, though, to the village, and the way it should look and the way it should represent our history. So it's going to be a challenge to find a good fit, and there's some natural. There's some natural ways for us to sync up with the Visible Music College. I mean, where else in the country could you find a college that teaches music and they're next to an outdoor entertainment center? So there's a way to sync up the use and the production of the venue with the staff and the students at the Visible Music College. We just haven't kind of figured it out yet, because our busy time at Fox Point is the summer break for the college students. But we're continuing to have good conversations with Camp Harvey and Pastor Dave at the Living Word Church, who's on the Visible Music College Board. So really, this is just a housekeeping measure to extend the same terms they have for one more year, and I think we'll probably have maybe more of a long-term vision for both the college and for the building sometime during these next 12 months.
And the trustees have any questions for the administrator on this item? If not, Mayor, can we have this on the agenda for the next village board meeting? Thank you, Mayor. I do just, I was speaking with our treasurer this morning in the office, and for residents wondering, village stickers deadlines are still being enforced, and so in terms of the deadline to buy your sticker, it is still June 30th, is that correct?
It's June 30th. There has not been that discussion yet. I'm not
Okay.
saying there won't be, I'm just
So-
saying it's not come to me yet.
So as of this point, residents should know that the expectation is still June 30th to purchase vehicle stickers, and now it's a little bit easier because the municipal center is open with reduced hours. So just wanted to communicate that to the residents. Thank you for nothing further tonight.
Airport and Economic Development, Trustee Fish.
Thank you, Mayor, no report.
Police and Fire, Trustee Zeldenrust.
Thank you, Mayor, no report.
Buildings and Public Works, Trustee Hardy.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report.
Information Technology, Element ADA, Trustee Mano.
Thank you, Mayor, I have no report.
Youth Center and Insurance, Trustee Gurevich.
Thank you, I have nothing this evening.
That brings us to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a committee of the whole meeting, so public comment should be restricted to topics that are on this agenda. Does anybody in the audience here have anything for public comment? Melanie, I think that would be just you.
No, thank you, though.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, do you have anything from those at home watching?
We do. We have two. The first public comment for this meeting is from Jan Hamstra. Hi, my name is Jan. I've lived in the village for most of my adult life, raised my family here, made it our home. I know today is probably not the right time to present complaints, given the looting and damage of recent days, but in time I know that will pass. It's definitely something more important at the moment than the immediate ongoing problem in my area of town. Unfortunately, our area of town has been bombarded with fireworks since the end of April, a full 6 to 8 weeks earlier than last year. Just to be clear, the explosions have not been constant or back-to-back, sometimes spaced out every 15 to 20 minutes. They used to begin at dusk, 9 p.m. Some evenings they are now starting around 8 o'clock. We know they will escalate in the coming days and weeks, closer together, louder. Last Saturday night, we were awakened at 1:52 in the morning, Sunday morning, and had a hard time getting back to sleep. The neighbors are pretty disgusted, and many don't call LPD because, quote, nothing will get resolved, it's useless, unquote, they say. Some of us have babies, small children who are pretty scared. Some people have PTSD. Most of us have animals who are literally freaking out and trying to find places to hide. Some people have to get up early and go to work, sometimes on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. There are some cool nights where we should be able to open our bedroom windows, but can't and are forced to use the AC. Some of us haven't worked since the stay-at-home orders have been in place and may have trouble paying high electric bills for using the AC unnecessarily. I was personally told things were going to get better after the last municipal election, but in this case, they have not. There has got to be a way to solve this problem without always sending patrol cars to find the offenders. There is always a solution to every problem if the right procedures are in place. We can't live this way until August when the fireworks finally stop. I'm starting to think that if uncontrolled fireworks are not affecting you or your area, we just have to suck it up and move on. I worked in the legal field and have many years of public sector experience to know this is not the case. So when things calm down in the village, would the mayor and police chief please figure out a solution to this ongoing problem? I would like to say that I've recently communicated with some of your trustees, and they've been kind enough to offer to help us and should be recognized for doing so. Unfortunately, the looting then happened and we got sidetracked, which is understandable.
Thank you. Where does she live?
Address is not included.
Christina Drive.
I know it.
Chief, you have a bad location?
Yeah, for the last 10 years or so I have, sure. Trustee Zelderus and I made me aware of the problem again. And we have addressed this by sending patrol patrol cars into that neighborhood once, twice a day for the last week, albeit except Sunday, maybe Monday, today. But we dispatch cars there, they sit there for sometimes up to 30 minutes from the time frame that she provided. We have yet to be able to locate these fireworks during the time frame she's provided. Now it may have gotten earlier. We'll back up our times. We'll alter our schedules a little differently, but we've been rolling this for a good week or better now, and we'll continue it until we can find a source.
It's kind of focused in the area of our 86 and Orange, the subdivision in that area.
Okay. We'll work on it. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. There's another comment?
Yes, from a Brianna Johnson, 2444 183rd Street. For the businesses that are currently open or those that are closed and will reopen soon, what safety precautions are being put into place to protect the employees and deter further looting?
Thank you. Since this is public comment, maybe you could email her back and ask her to contact my office tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any other public comment? The trustees have anything for old business? Do the trustees have anything for new business?
I do. I just wanted to mention thank you to the chief for the help on Wentworth Avenue. It has turned into pretty much the Indianapolis 500. Cars the other night with the average speed of 75 miles an hour. It was during the craziness, so they were all running for you, I would imagine. But you've had an officer probably in our neighborhood every day, and I bet if you ask them, they don't sit more than 15 minutes before they pull out and get another significant speed. So thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else for new business? Thank you. Although it says on our agendas that there's an executive session tonight, it has been canceled. Therefore, are you happy, Mr. Welch?
I'm happier than me.
Ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ask the vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Manno?
Aye.
Trustee Hardy?
Aye.
Trustee Zeldin-Ross?
Aye.
Trustee Grady-Parovich? Trustee Bassi?
Aye.
Trustee Fish?
Aye.
Treasurer, thank you. You had to smack me in my head. I couldn't get the word vote.